This is an introduction tutorial to blend shapes. Blend shapes are a form of deformation animation, allowing you to animate things by deforming the shape. So there's two types of animation. There's deformation animation, such as blend shapes, and there is rigged animation. In rigged animation, you create a skeleton with bones, you weight map the different parts of your asset to those bones, and then when you move those bones, your asset is animated. Now, in a lot of cases, that's not really, that doesn't fit how you want to animate things. It works great for things like humanoid characters, but if you've got something like an ooze, for example, it's hard to animate that using a rigged animation. So that's where blend shape animation comes in, or deformation. There, you take your shape and you deform it, and then you cycle between those two states, or potentially more states, to create the animation. So with blend shapes, it is very important that the number of vertices and faces remain the same. If you add or remove any faces, it's not likely to work. So let's start with a very simple example. We're going to make a gelatinous cube that kind of has pseudopod legs to move it along. Okay, so I've just started Blender here. We've got our default cube. I'm going to move it up. Now, okay, cube works for a gelatinous cube, but the problem here is that right now our cube only has the 8 corners, so it is not ideal for making some kind of pseudopods, because, as we said, the number of vertices and faces must remain the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some more faces to this in order so that we can animate the other stage. So I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to add the loop cut. Very good. Okay, that has given me more points to work with. I'm just going to go with something like this. Obviously, if you were doing this in a real situation, you'd probably still want more points here to make a much more interesting pseudopod shape, but for now, this is good enough for this demonstration. Okay, to get started, we take our object and we duplicate it. And then I'm going to move it along the x-axis. So that we have 2 objects side by side. So one of our objects is going to become the reference object, and the other one is going to become the blend shape that we want to blend into. So now that we've got that, I'm going to sculpt our blend shape. Well, I'm not going to sculpt, I'm just going to go and play around here with the points to make a sort of a pseudopod. something like this. Maybe we can go okay, and since that has moved some of the mass forward, I'm going to take this down a bit. Maybe even this one. All right, nothing fancy, but there we go. We have our blend shape here. So then what we're going to do is we're going to select the blend shape. Then we're going to control select our original. Go down to here, and then under key shapes, hit the plus sign, and then in the pull down, select join as shapes. Okay. Now we can see that our original now has a blend shape here, and by adjusting this value, we can see now that we are blending our original into the blend shape. So at 0, we have the original. At 1, we have fully blend shaped into the other shape, and anything in between, it extrapolates. So now, by kind of playing this back and forth, we can give the illusion that this gelatinous cube is moving. So again, this is a very simple example, but the same principles can be used to do all kinds of things. So for example, in the weapon demo that I showed where I mini was able to swap weapons, again, the number of vertices and faces were exactly the same. All I did was take the mesh for the weapon and reduce it in size until it was just a single point. And that way it seemingly disappeared, but I didn't actually remove it. And then the other blend shape just made it the normal size. I did this for 2 different weapons, so you can have multiple blend shapes here. I just did one, but you can have as many as you want. And then you can apply the one that you want or the ones that you want. So that's how the weapon demo was done. Similarly, the Stargate, there I had a bunch of blend shapes, and there what I did is the Stargate is actually broken into components. So there's the gate itself, there's the wormhole part, there's the spew part, and things like and the blades, and they were all just separate objects that were then parented together. That makes it a lot easier to work on the blend shapes, because if I had joined it all together, then, for example, trying to change the mesh for the blades would be really difficult, because there would be so many other things in that same object. So basically, I did the blade separately, I did the wormhole separately, I did the spew separately, and then just parented them together. And Calpy does support that. The initial version, 1.6, where there was no blending sequencer, it was just trip the blend shape, that didn't support it. If you had a hierarchy of objects that had blend shapes, it would only recognize the one on the top level. But now, with the blend sequencer, you can have sub-objects with blend shapes, and it will recognize those. The only trick is figuring out the order, because you need to reference them by a index number, not by name, and not yet anyways. And if you don't know the order because you've got a bunch of sub-objects, you can turn on your ultra level debugging for Calpy, run any blend shape sequence, and that will in the log list the order of the blend shapes, so you know which of your blend shapes is associated with what index. And that's about it.